meeting to in order. Roll call, please.
Boyd? Goldbeck? Here. Palacian?
Here.
Atwood?
Here.
McNary?
Here.
Roper?
Here.
Simmons?
Here. All right. Let's move on to approving the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes? Is there any questions? We have a motion.
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Meeting minutes are approved. Let's move on to approving the agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Agenda is approved. Consent calendar, there is none. Continued matters, there is none. Now we can roll on to the commission items. First commission item is going to take some time, so we're going to dive right into it right up front. Commission item A, ID number 18-1273. Consideration of approval by request by property owners to enter into the Mills Act historical property contracts pursuant to FMC 12-1706. Staff, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
Better.
All right, thanks everyone for your patience with technical difficulties. So the first property under item A is the J.H. Waller Home, historic property number 302, located at 306 North Park Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 17th with Commissioner Roper. And here's the revised work plan being submitted. And just to make a note, for all of the forthcoming work plans, all of the interior items were omitted from consideration. So for the J.H. Waller Home, over the next 10 years, what's been proposed is exterior paint, a re-roof, installation of new insulation, repair to the carriage house, another exterior paint, windows, termite fumigation, replacement of the existing AC units, and another exterior paint in 2028. Would you like me to run through them all and then discuss after? Or would you like to stop and talk through?
That would be a good idea. We can run after, and then we'll come back to each slide. To this, I think, specific chart is what all of us will want to see. So,
Okay.
Yeah, continue.
Property number 2 is the Cathedral Home, historic property number 33, located at 330 North Park Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 28th with Commissioner Halajian. And the work plan includes reconstruction of an English arbor and a hand pump per a historic photograph, repointing of the brickwork on the chimney, rehabilitation work towards the porch and window screens and transom window in 2024, exterior paint, and work on the hardscape, including the path leading to the house, the driveway, and driveway apron. Property 3 is the C.J. Ryland Home, historic property number 308. It's located at 573 East Terrace Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 19th with Commissioner McNary. And the work plan for this property includes a few landscaping items. The first one is removal of a camphor tree that's abutting the property and, causing damage to the foundation. And then, work on the garage, which includes, repointing the brickwork, and repairing, electrical equipment. Work on the front entries, which includes, necessary repairs and painting, replacement of overhead garage doors, removal of a redwood tree in the southeast corner of the property, exterior paint, work on the pergola that's on the back patio. Currently it's a non-original latticed pergola that's attached to the property, and they want the property owner would like to construct a new pergola that's more fitting with the character of the property and that's detached from the property to show a concrete decorative molding. Also in this work plan, we have work to the front patio. There are repairs needed for the concrete balustrades. And additionally, there's work needed on the driveway gates and the hardscape. There's currently a brick dividing wall that runs along the west property line, and it's not structurally sound, and so they're proposing to have that removed in 2028. And then lastly, thinning of their cedar tree every 5 years. Property number 4 is pardon me, that might be ISD. Hello? Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you. But that's ISD. Okay. All right, property number 4, the Niece Johnson Home. This is historic property number 245. It's also a contributor to the Wilson Island Historic District, and it's located at 601 East Pine Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 28th with Commissioner Goldbeck. This work plan includes work to the driveway, repair to the windows, exterior paint, repair to the garage, particularly the parapet. There's an electrical wire that someone connected to the corner of the parapet of this garage at some point, and it's causing tension and causing it to have diminish its structural integrity. So that's included on this work plan to have that remedied. Additionally, necessary repairs to the roof, and then the following years until 2028, just annual inspection of the property and addressing any repairs that are needed during that time. This property number 5, the Frank Bradford Home. This is a contributor to the Wilson Island Historic District, located at 630 East Home Avenue. This site visit was conducted on September 17th with Commissioner Roper. This work plan includes landscaping. Excuse me. Hello?
IT coming to the rescue, but don't necessarily need it anymore.
Yeah. Or with us delivering a new laptop and stuff just in case.
This projector is working up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine.
No, it's okay. The file I need's on yours, so
Oh, okay.
it's fine.
Do you wanna switch them?
No, it's fine. Just keep going. Just not.
Sorry for the interruption. So back on property number 5, we were looking at the work plan. So this work plan, includes, restructuring of the large trees on the property, inspection of, the roof, particularly the gutters, that will need cleaning in order to, maintain the structural integrity of the property, additional maintenance for landscaping, replacement of fencing, re-roofing of an arbor, electrical work, replacement of some metal crank windows on the rear elevation. These windows are part of an addition that was added on. And also, repair to the brick patio, replacement of window weights, and repairs to the concrete path leading to the main entry of the home. Property number 6 is the Elia Home. This is historic property number 311, located at 634 through 640 Van Ness Avenue. And this site visit was conducted on September 19th with Commissioner McNary. This property is currently undergoing a complete rehabilitation, and therefore the bulk of the work that's been listed is in the first year, 2019. And to follow that will be work on the landscape, exterior paint, additional landscape, maintenance to the exterior, fencing around the side and rear portions of the property, and then additional maintenance and accessory features to be considered in the later years. Property number 7 is the Albert and Susie Clark Home, contributor to the Wilson Island Historic District. This property is located at 667 East Pine Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 24th with Commissioner Roper. The work plan for this property includes replacement of railing on the rear deck, landscaping in the backyard, and replacement of a garage door and rewired mechanics, termite fumigation, exterior paint, trimming for the large trees, replacement of an existing AC unit, and installation of another new AC unit, necessary repairs and coating for the roof, and the installation of solar panels within the flat portion of this roof. It has a flat roof, sort of with a hit parapet with red clay tiles. Property number 8 is the Thomas and Sadie Elliott Home, historic property number 301, located at 934 East Mildretta Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 17th with Commissioner Roper. And the work plan for this property includes landscaping, necessary repairs to the front porch, repair of original windows, and making sure they're in proper operation, installation of insulation within the walls, and then insulation within the attic space, and then exterior paint as well as solar and repointing of the brickwork on the chimney. Property number 9 is the Matson Home, historic property number 255, located at 1440 East Divisadero Street. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 17th with Commissioner Goldbeck. The work plan for this property includes an exterior power washing, repair to window screens and replacing if needed, and then to the barn and the rear portion of the property owner would like to make necessary repairs to the cladding and replace missing loft doors. Additional repairs listed are to the front balcony. There are repairs needed for the flooring as well as the metal railings in addition to paint. Additional tasks here include the main entry doors and windows, getting them weatherized. Another exterior power wash, and exterior paint within the last year, in addition to replacement of the barn door. Property number 10 is and the final property is the Senator Ray W. and Marie Hayes Home, historic property number 310, located at 1608 or 1616 South Minnewawa Avenue. The site visit for this property was conducted on September 19th with Commissioner McNary. And the work plan for this property includes a re-roof, electrical work, replacement of doors that have deteriorated, exterior paint, repair of broken weights in glass and windows where needed, and the repair of window screens.
Great, thank you for the presentation. I was sitting here thinking about how we're going to process all of these. If we want to have our questions to the staff one at a time, and then public, then back to staff one at a time, or if we want to go ahead and comment on them all, and then allow the public to comment on all, and then back to final. Any preference?
Hey, Jason, do we want to do Dawn's first?
Sure.
Then we can, so he can get back in. So Dawn, if you could just announce your recusal for consideration of your property, and then we'll take his first, and then I'll grab you when we're done.
Okay, sure. I'm recusing for item number 9, the Mary Matson Home.
Take that out of order.
Go ahead and, any questions for staff, as Dawn said? Item number 9.
We want to put that chart back up?
So here's the property, and then here's the work plan.
Can we turn that light back off? Thanks.
Most of us have visited this house at one time or another. I don't have any particular questions to staff.
So maybe staff could talk a little bit about the decision to take interior renovations out, so we're all kind of on the same page with regard to that topic.
Sure. Well, I know we had a discussion about this at previous HPC meetings after we had started doing our site visits, and we noticed that some property owners had decided or went ahead and listed improvements that they were already going to do anyway, but they were on the interior, and so we went ahead, we did document them, but we with guidance from the commission, we ultimately decided to omit them, at least from this year's consideration for Mills Act, just because they are not readily visible not gonna be readily visible from the public right of way. And this is, an incentive program that's supposed to benefit, the public, and therefore that's how we arrived at that decision.
Laura, what was the process? Did you then notify those applicants, or how did that work?
Well, what happened is when we were doing the site visits, we informed property owners that we only required them to list, exterior features. And so we made it known that these might not ultimately get included, in consideration.
One thing, although it's not on Don's particular, project is that, landscape is a recurring theme in quite a few. And I get that on a sense for preventative, damage to the structure. In that sense, overall, that's very, I think, wise, in my own eyes. But, that was where I was able to see some of that in the overall, even though it's not here on Dawn's. But, that was just before we dive into all the others. Landscape can and cannot, sometimes, apply. And on the instance where it's saving a foundation, same thing with, insulation and some of those things, there's a fine line. So we
Right.
need to, walk through.
Right, insulation itself is not an exterior feature, but the installation of it could have an effect on the exterior of the property. So that's why that remains, in the work plan.
You know, speaking of landscaping, having just done a lecture today on cultural landscapes, I think landscaping is very important to the integrity of many of these homes. Yes.
So on that subject,
Yes.
I was just talking to Dawn about, I suspect that what was deemed appropriate at the time these homes were built with regard to landscape and the way in which the landscape, addressed the architecture is quite different than the way we think about it today. So just because someone is gonna put in a new front yard, is that good enough? Or does that landscape plan have to in some way recall the historic precedents that governed landscape architecture at the time the home was built?
It's a good question. We don't necessarily prevent a property owner from doing that. I don't think we, can enforce that, as a project proposal. So it's certainly encouraged.
I had no more questions for staff on this house, on item number 9. Anybody else? No? Well, at this point, for item 9, I can open it up to the public, and then we'll come back and we'll open up everybody's individual items too later. But, this will be just for this particular home, well, Dawn is outside, so,
Are we gonna vote individually on these homes?
I think we'll get through, I think we'll get through that in each round, yes. That's correct. Any questions from the public or comments from the public on item number 9? Hearing none, I will kind of move it back to the commission. Is there any motions to accept the contract years and all their items as is?
I'll move to accept the items for, item number 9, the Mary Matson home.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, number 9 goes through. It's on that one.
Would you like to start back at property number 1?
Yes, please. Let's run through the same process. I like how fast that went. Thank you all for bearing with us on that. Back to item 1, HP, property number 302. Can we pull up the chart again?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to see if the commission has any comments or questions to staff.
I particularly like the, carriage, house repair. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe just for clarification, the AC units, again, that's kind of an interior thing, but the fact that it integrates with historic elements, is that why it's on the list?
And also, just the process of installing it, it could have an effect on, exterior features, so that's why it also remained included, yeah.
So the unit itself might not be that, but the actual
Right.
taking care of,
Making sure that process of installation is, done
installation itself
done
is.
sensitively, yeah.
Is this an example where the insulation needs to be installed to structural integrity of the exterior walls? Do you recall?
I believe so. I was out there with, yeah, I believe that was the issue.
Was it a foam epoxy, insulation that was?
I believe the property owner was wanting to install a spray insulation.
Well, to help with the rigidity of the, wall.
Exactly.
Okay.
Are the AC units gonna be visible from the street?
That remains to be seen.
Now, that's actually a good question. Is it being replaced in kind with the existing, and that might be something we can ask the, property owner if they're available. Is it gonna be replaced where it currently presently is?
I believe so.
Okay.
The property owner could speak further to that.
I didn't have any further questions on this one. Does anybody else? All right. Well, I'd like to open it up to, the public. If there's a homeowner here with this house, it'd be great to hear from you too.
Okay.
Okay, hearing none, let's bring it back to the commission and, deliberate a little bit. In particular, I would like to know a little bit more about the AC unit, but I'm sure if they're going to move it to the front or the facade of the building, it's going to require to come back to HPC anyhow. So if it's in kind, I don't think that's a problem for me in particular.
I agree.
Christina, was there any evidence of termite damage? I'm just seeing how far down the list that is, year 7. It's not
There
urgent.
was.
I think, as recommended, it's recommended to have termite fumigation every 10 years, so that's why he included it,
Okay.
on this work plan in that
So
particular.
there's nothing urgent that would move that farther up? Okay.
It's a maintenance issue.
Okay.
Any other comments? Next would be, do we have any motions to accept the, work plan as is?
I move we accept the work plan for the J.H. Weller Home at HP 302 located at 306 North Park Avenue.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, we have that accepted as is for the work plan. And we can move on to item 2. Cathedral Home, HP number 033. Let's go ahead and move to the chart, please. And does, commission have any questions for staff?
Is the chimney, in need of repair now?
Yes, I believe,
I was wondering why that was on year 2 instead of year 1.
My recollection is it's not didn't seem to be in structural jeopardy, it's simply needs repointing for good
okay.
maintenance.
Okay.
I have no questions.
I have no questions on this one either. Any other questions? All right, then I will open it up to the public for comments. Do we have any comments from the public on this particular item? Hearing none, would the homeowner like to?
I am the homeowner.
Okay, would you like to say anything? Your name and address, please.
My name is James Sponsler. I'm the homeowner of 330 North Park, the Cathedral Home, HP 033. So just a couple things is that I think I may have left out a few details. Like, for example, when I do the exterior paint, there will be a scraping, which actually is there, but there's also some portions of the architectural trim that have just been replaced haphazardly, and those will be replaced in kind as they would have been with the remainder portions of the house. So there's some items there that I noticed that maybe I just didn't provide enough detail to exactly what the plans are. What I have noted, and I did provide, I believe it's in your guys' packets, is a picture of the house from 1905, and that's where the hand pump and the English arbor come in from. As I have found out a couple of things in between the time that the site visit and today, is that the Cowdery family, they were in fact, he was specialized in English arbors and English gardens. Now I have not found a source of where he may have built any around here. At the least, I can say that he was prominent enough that he was featured for his obituary in 1925 regarding the fact that he was a highly prominent gardener, landscape gardener for the Fresnans. So at the least, he did that for the actual for neighbors and for prominent people of the time. At the most, there is an English garden that is no longer in existence. I'm going to be doing some further research on, but he might have built what would have been known as Recreation Park, which would have been to the east of the original county hospital. And so that's some of the other information that I've come up for. So that's why the English arbor is there. He built that into his own house. And then yes, as for the chimney, it is something that's in fact it's not in structural emergency right now to take it down, but it is something that is high on the priority list.
The arbor in the historic photograph was located on the south side of the property. I have the historic photograph on backup if you'd like me to pull it up, but okay.
So the items you mentioned, you said you didn't include the detail, but they are included in the
They are
cost.
included in the estimate,
Okay.
and they are included in basically as I noted, for example, exterior paint. I took that as an entire package. So the scraping, the sanding, the repairing of cladding, the repairing of trim, in addition to then getting to the paint itself. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for property owner? No? Okay. Any other people in the public like to speak on this item? Hearing none, we'll move it back to the commission and deliberate. Any other comments the commission would like to bring up? Okay.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. We move on to the third property. Thank you. Third property is the C.J. Ryland Home, HP number 308. And the one, Ron, you were part of this one, right? Yes. Okay. All right. Any questions for staff or comments? I think for me, I just wanted to verify that the landscape items that are included were all just for protection of the structure in the home and had purpose, you know, and much like Christina brought up, they have sometimes a historic purpose on.
Or they contribute to the
yes.
integrity of the.
So much like
The camphor tree is right next to the property, and I would say it's that far away from the house.
yeah.
And, they're justified in worrying about the foundation because it's so
Sure.
close to the house,
You can already see it starting to come.
yeah. First I was skeptical and I went around and looked at it and I go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Needs to come out. I'm surprised it hasn't damaged the foundation already because it's so huge.
Sure, sure. And then the cedar trees are pretty,
Cedar
relatively
tree
close
is
to you.
just, it's not indigenous to the area that's not doing well. So,
Do you know if the foundation, is it a brick foundation, the stone wall?
I believe it's concrete, it's got a basement. And the basement goes underneath the front patio, which is unique.
Any questions for staff on any particular elements on this one? No comments? Hearing no more comments, let's open this part up to the, public. Is anybody here that, is a representative of the home that would like to speak? Or any other, member of the public? Seeing none, we'll move it back to commission, for final, deliberation. Any adjustments or motions or anything, anybody,
I move that we accept the, contract as is.
Okay.
Second it?
Second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. And we will move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is the Nis Johnson Home, HP property number 245, also within the Wilson Island District. Okay, let's look at this over, and is there any questions or comments to the staff? This one seemed pretty straightforward to me,
Yeah.
very uniform with how these have so far turned out. So I appreciate staff's hard work and the commission's hard work that were pointed on all these to kind of root out a good, well thought out work plan.
I will just add to this that under the windows, the front trim is the historic shape and a poor redo around the sides is not, and so that's one of the pieces that's gonna be fixed under that item.
Okay. That'll be under the 2020 item?
Correct.
Okay. Or 2019, okay. Great. And the to be determined portion, was there a value potentially, I mean, I could do the math and back that in, but there was, I know that's gonna be kind of a floating, cost there, but, for the sake of the estimate, the Mills Act, was there a dollar figure applied?
No, there is no cost estimate for that at this point.
So what's the process when you don't have a cost estimate? It comes back for review, is that it? Is that?
Not necessarily. The purpose of requesting cost estimates was to get an idea of what property owners are plan to invest in their properties. So it's not an exact calculation,
Okay.
and plans could change, within the next 10 years. So it's supposed to, help the review process for us to get an idea of, the investment going into the home.
And last year, we didn't have that information, for those first
So it's,
4
Okay.
projects. So it's not something you have to have, but it does help in your evaluation.
Right. I'm good for this.
Any other questions for staff or comments? No? All right. I will open this up to the public. Anyone from the public like to, talk about this particular property? Hearing none, I will bring it back to the commission for, final. Do we have any motions on accepting the work plan as is?
I'll move to accept the work plan.
Okay, I will second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and we move on to item number 5. The Frank Bedford, or Bradford Home, also within the Wilson Island District. Now, this particular one wasn't on an HPC number, correct? It's just a contributor within the island, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions to the staff at this point?
Can I ask the arbor, it has a roof on it, is the arbor not usually a open trellis type structure? Is this,
Correct,
what is this arbor?
It's an open roof, but it has, spaced panels on top that need, repair. And I don't think it's in,
It's a pergola.
can find a photo if you would like.
That's fine.
Okay.
As long as you say it's an arbor, I'm fine with that.
Is there a specific term for the roof? Is it trellis that just, is that the term for the roof of an arbor?
No, if it was just
I was
open
curious.
with no solid cover, that I think is typically a trellis. But a trellis can be attached to a building. I think an arbor is usually a freestanding, open structure that has trellis work on it. It's not a solid cover, but in this case, it has a solid cover. Is that right?
They're spaced panels, so it's not completely covered, if I remember right, Christina.
That's what I would call it, the homeowners right here.
But it's original and it needs repair. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. That's what matters.
Yes.
It's a very nice piece of property. I look at it every day when I walk out my front door.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments or questions for staff?
Oh, let's make comments now.
All right, hearing none, I'll open it up to the public. If the public has any comments or questions, or if property owners here want to say hi, and that'd be fantastic to hear from. Your name and address, please.
My name is Linda Gleason, and I reside at 630 East Home Avenue. And this property actually was in my family. It hasn't been that way all along, so unlike my near neighbor Bob Boro, there's a distinction there. But the landscape is significant, a significant part of this house. As the story goes, Frank Bradford, the lot next door was unoccupied, and so he decided he would go ahead and plant a rose garden. And soon the owner, I believe Mrs. Wilson said, that is no bueno, so he went ahead and bought the property. So it is a 2-lot property, and has a lot of, I'm guessing, close to original trees on it, and a couple near the house and near the pool, but for the most part those are pretty, they are old, lovely trees. And so you'll see a big piece of this is related to that landscaping. And the house is actually going to be part of the few houses that are being featured in the centennial that's being produced for next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back to commission and move on to the next step. Do we have any?
I'll make a motion to approve the Frank Bradford home.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. So this moves forward with the revised work plan in place. Thank you. On to item 6. The Elia Home, HP number 311. We have some history with this one recently.
Very active.
And I see representation in the room, so we might have questions. That's great. Do we have any questions for staff, by the way? I know since this has been kind of recently in front of us, we've probably asked a lot of questions already, so, Any questions over here? Okay.
I got a comment.
Yeah, comments are great too.
This house is right downtown. Preferably I'd like to see it as a residential, but because it's flanked by vacant lots in the middle of downtown, I can't see any other way to make this property work than to turn it into some kind of a business, and the owner is talking about putting in a restaurant bar, as we know from recently, and he's putting in the majority of the work right off the bat. So he's putting all his money up front, just like the Rowell building was.
Yeah.
And as long as he maintains it as he predicts,
Right.
I think it's a great asset.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, I will open this up to the public now. Is there anybody that wants to come up? No. Okay, anybody else? All right. Okay. We will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission. Any final thoughts?
I move we approve.
Second, we got a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
It moves forward. Thank you. Item number 7, Albert and Susie Clark Home, also a contributor to the Wilson Island Historic District. Who was the staff, or who was the commissioner, who was
That'd be
assigned
me.
to this one? That was you?
That'd be me.
Okay, great.
One thing that was made a big impression on me is, a historic picture of the house showed it painted white and completely changed how it popped out on the road, so it was just amazing how presently it's a kind of a beige, so. Yeah, a lot of beige. And it's on the corner, so the rear view is visible. A lot of it is visible from the street.
Any questions for staff or any further comments?
I think the solar, does the solar fall into the category of the kinds of things we're approving with regard to the historic character of the home?
Right. That's a great question, I think, for staff, because I don't know what the state interior architect's recent is on solar and its incorporation into historic homes, specifically on clay tiles and those kind of things. I imagine the dollar amount isn't necessarily for the solar, but it's probably for the backbone work for the solar, not destroy the structure.
What's interesting with this property, there's actually a central flat roof, the parapet, that has those hit clay tiles. So the property owner, I believe, intends to install the solar on that flat portion of the roof that would not be visible from the public right-of-way.
Yeah, it's an ideal fit for solar and historical.
Going through the process of having solar installed and checking with the former city manager and the current city manager, as well as the state historic, SHPO, that solar is not, again, I'm here, solar doesn't fall under the categories. I mean, solar can be visible, solar can be seen, solar is not covered in any of that. And I was careful not, it's on my barn, so it's not visible from the street. But because another property in my neighborhood was putting solar where it was extremely visible, everyone could see it, historic property, I called, lots of calls to the city, to the state, said, it's solar, it's exempt. You can't, and pretty much answered that quickly for me, and I believe I have that in writing from Bruce Rudd, if that counts now. But that if it's solar, it's, yeah, I know communities, neighborhoods like the Tower District had concerns about the visibility of solar, and I believe the response there, Dan might go with that history, was that the same response, that it's exempt from the other issues in terms of zoning and visibility.
So it won't affect the integrity of the property?
Right.
Okay. But as I pointed out in this case, because of the roof design, it's a great candidate. You can't see it.
But my question is putting it on the list, because it,
Right.
it's the public benefit of that. I'm questioning that.
Oh, not my turn yet.
We'll be right back, yeah.
Well, we also want to ensure that the installation of the solar, that in the process of installing it, that there's no damage to the roof or any other historic exterior feature. So that's another consideration by including it. But you're welcome to ask the property owner for more.
Would we like to invite the property owner up to come and talk about your home and what you have plans for?
So thanks for having us tonight. This is fantastic. So Slayton Van Son and my wife Kathy, 667 East Pine Avenue. So the solar isn't necessarily the focus, but when you have a home that's 5,300 square feet and you want to maintain the original integrity of the windows, etc., there's drafts, there's just certain things that are going to happen in terms of heat loss. And when you have the original radiators inside, you're looking for ways to kind of help counteract that cost of maintaining heating and cooling a home like that. So thus the solar was thought to be advantageous, not visible, but value added to the home. And the structural integrity to support that. The roof, when I put in some bathroom vents, not exaggerating, pretty darn thick. So that whole roof is going to have to get replaced sometime because that extra weight of just the layers and layers of extra roofing on that flat roof. So there's more, I think, to be defined, and that's great to have this process where we can come back and revisit and add to the list.
Something I never really thought about is, with single pane windows and historic windows, the thermal comfort value goes way down, and we're living in a different era where power is not cheap.
Power's not cheap.
Solar because of that issue, right?
And we only have air conditioning upstairs. We don't have air conditioning downstairs, so it gets a little humid. So entertainment value, to entertain, you can't bring people in the summer because it's just too warm unless you put sand on the floor. But when you get to the winter months, it's more favorable. So the goal is to, have we're so blessed to be the third owner of the home and to live in such a historical neighborhood. And we want to invest into the house and to make a difference in the neighborhood. And thus, we're here to share our ideas. And there's many other things. We have, when you start hearing other people, it's like, oh yeah, the gutters are built into the roof. They're integrated into the home. So you get some new skin on your wrist when you're reaching over the tiles to try to get in there, but it's starting to fail and starting to rust through. And so you think about, wow, well, if you're going to replace the AC, first you should take the AC off, replace the entire roof, including redoing the tiling, and you can replace the gutter. It goes on. And just like the house, I'd like to share this photo. This is the photo of, in white that really has a stark contrast. If you can show the photo of the house as is today, the big taupe house.
I want to bring it back to the original elevation. The original's here, but
And then when you have a home that size, you have 51 windows, and you have, not who's counting, 137 panes of glass that need to be reglazed.
Not that you counted.
Not that I count, but at $50 a pane, it was, I learned from RPN how to glaze, and I can be in the glazing Olympics now, so about halfway done.
How big is the house?
5,300 square feet.
That's about the biggest in the neighborhood, isn't it?
No, I think the Millers have a little bit, and then Linda, but I think, how many square feet is yours? Okay, so I think the biggest home and just a little bit more square footage is Natalie Clark. Yeah. It's a lot of house. It was a great hide-and-seek house when we moved in.
multi-family home right there.
Huge house.
Yeah. Any other questions for me?
Any questions from
I was skeptical about the solar panels, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
If you were to
thank you.
replace all the windows and insulate the house, you'd be more than 30,000, so
And less integrity.
I'd buy your argument.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for clarifying that, you know. Any
I-
other questions?
I may be sticking out my hat here, but I do know that they make tiles with the solar in the tiles, and it's probably ungodly expensive. But I do know that is a product that's available.
Especially if it's in terracotta color, so you couldn't
Yeah.
tell the difference, that would be ideal. And then well, unfortunately, back in 2000, we bought the house in 2004, they did a texture on the house, so it went from original color to the taupe. So it's a significant investment. We want to go back to the smooth finish because that texture so there's a lot of investment. So we appreciate what you're doing for us, and we look forward to the partnership going forward. Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the public like to talk about this particular item? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to commission for final thoughts.
I move that we, accept the contract as is.
Second?
Got a first and a second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Hearing none, the item moves forward. Congratulations. Item number 8. Thomas and Sadie Elia Home, Historic Preservation number 301. Any comments or questions from the commission for staff, for each other? This one reviewed pretty nicely.
Yeah. Yeah.
No questions about it.
No.
Questions over here?
So you can do all that for 15,000?
That is,
That's a good deal.
that is a fantastic deal.
Take it.
Are you suggesting to increase
No, I'm
that?
not
or-
suggesting.
I'm fascinated by the varying cost of painting exteriors that I'm seeing here. I would like a list of the painters. Because it's such a wide variance of.
Yeah, mine cost $20,000.
Yeah, I know how much mine cost, and so I'm fascinated by the variance in cost of painting, even doing it yourself.
Yeah.
It seems wildly different.
Yeah, sometimes, and I get why some people stucco over homes, because painting is sometimes equally expensive. If you scrape and deal with the.
That's expensive.
Yeah. Any comments or questions?
I'm good.
Okay, I'd like to open it to the public, if there's any comments, or if the homeowners here would like to say anything, that'd be fantastic. No? We'll bring it back in for final commission thoughts.
I move we accept their proposal.
I'll second.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the item moves forward.
This is a really big deal for this house because it was vacant for so long and was moving toward demolition because it was inhabited, and it was a nuisance, and James probably knows too. I mean, so many calls for service to the police to this house that even during the restoration process, the police spent a lot of time moving people out of it. And so to be able to move from that point to this point is major, and Steve Walters and Lowell Property Management is to be congratulated for the work that they've done on that. This is a significant resource now that was almost gone.
Okay. The last item on this item A, the last property I should say. Senator Ray W. and Marie Hayes Home, historic property number 310. Again, this one in particular I had no comment on.
No.
This one, another home very familiar with that, the plan, the work plan seemed to make a lot of sense.
Exterior painting.
Exterior.
Exterior painting, like, how are you doing that?
Didn't say which side.
Well, having their kids do it.
Well, oh yeah, cladding and.
Cladding, yeah.
I need to talk.
Painting, yeah, who's doing this?
Well, it's a very nice home. It's not very visible from the street because I drove past it.
Yeah.
And, it's a nice house. It's a nice house. It's gonna need some paint here pretty soon. It's brick mostly, if I remember correctly. And it's a wood shingle roof, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Wood shake.
Do we have any
Have no comment?
questions for staff at all? Or any other comments? Okay. I'll go ahead and I'll open it up to the public. Is there any questions from the public? Any property owners out there that want to tell us about their home?
I'm just wondering how healthy that big tree is. It's very healthy. Okay.
Healthy?
Probably not as old as you'd think it is. If I remember correctly, the original owner, planted it when their son was born. So it's, probably about 60, 70 years old. But it looks in pretty good health. Of course, as all those trees need care every now and then. Thinning out, so branches don't break. It's a very beautiful piece of property. It's huge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public at all? No? Okay, I'll give it back to the commission for final thoughts. Any motions?
So moved.
If we accept it as.
I'll second.
Got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the item moves forward. And we got through 10 properties in record time, I think. So wonderful.
Thanks to all the homeowners.
Thank you. Yeah, congratulations. Now we got some work to do, right? We can move on to item B now, ID number 18-1274, reviewing the conceptual fence for St. John's Cathedral Catholic Church. Historic property number 086 and 087. Staff has a presentation for us.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
The owner representative of St. John's Cathedral Catholic Church and Rectory has requested that their pre-application consisting of conceptual fencing plans be reviewed and commented upon by the Historic Preservation Commission. So pictured here is St. John's Cathedral with the rectory to the north of it. Primary concerns for staff regarding this conceptual proposal are the facade of the church and its main entry, as they are primary character-defining features of the historic resource that are especially visible from the public right-of-way due to the church's corner location. Staff encourages discussion and pursuit of an optimal design for fencing that enhances and minimizes any potential adverse effects to the historic character of the property. Here are more current images. On the left, you're looking from the rectory, to the intersection toward the church. And then on the right, you're looking, along that south elevation of the church, starting from where the existing fencing begins to surround the rear, parking area. And further current images, viewpoints, to the left looking, north, and on the right looking east, on each main elevation of the church. And then here, providing a current image of the main entry, and the approach and the doors of the church. This is what staff has initially received from the property owner representative with regard to conceptual fencing for the property. Essentially, they are proposing fencing along the perimeter of the property, along the property line, with gates. So the fencing is marked by the dashed red line, and then the green wavy lines mark where there would be gate entries. So the owner representative is proposing to have a gate that opens and closes in front of the main entry of St. John's, and only to have it open during certain hours, and to have it closed obviously during closed hours, particularly after dark. And the fencing that they're proposing is a 7-foot tubular steel perimeter fence that would surround the entire property, with pickets that would be curved out toward the sidewalk to inhibit climbing, and have pointed ends without decorative finials. So these are conceptual renderings that the property owner provided to give a general idea of what they envision for, are initially envisioning for the property. Here's additional documentation, including materials and dimensions, as well as the proposed sliding gates, in addition to the operating hours. So generally, the gates would be open all day Saturday and Sunday, and then during the week, really during the mornings, and then some of the days it would be open in the evenings or in the afternoons as well. And the reason this is being proposed by the property owner, these conceptual plans are being proposed by the applicant for security purposes when the facilities are closed, especially after dark, as I mentioned, due to the targeted vandalism that has taken place recently, but also within previous years. What the property owner submitted to us was documentation for within the past decade or so. Vandalism has included broken windows, broken and stolen AC units, damaged statues, and break-ins, and as well as more recently, and fire being set to the front doors. I believe this was in May of this year when it occurred. So to give the commission and public an idea, the conceptual fence that they're proposing would require a variance, and this is a rendering created by Dan to show what, an acceptable fence, would be, according to the current development code. So currently, properties can have, in downtown, can have full height fencing surrounding the property only if it is set back 1 foot behind the setback of the facade. So this is an example of what would be acceptable without a variance. Additionally, I apologize, the highlighter doesn't show up well here, but you can probably see the blue, scratched lines along, this, site plan. Upon initial review, speaking with the director of our department, she was willing to consider, relief from our development code, because as you're probably aware, historic properties can apply for relief from development code standards, if it's, going to contribute to the historic character of the property and help preserve it. So upon initial review, she was open to considering, a proposal in which, fencing was only installed along, the blue lines, pictured there, leaving the, main entry and facade open.
Would that protect that, statue on the corner?
It appears, it appears that it would.
To wrap around that corner and capture the statue inside.
And I would also add on to this, consideration that the director also encouraged continuing, the fencing that's already present that's, rounding off the, rear parking area. So I had a photo. So she would like, the fencing pictured on the right to continue. So having that full height wrought iron fencing separated by the, brick, piers with topped by orbs. That was her recommendation.
This being not a motion item tonight, it's really just conceptual review and comments. I think looking at the plan, it stinks that you have to protect something so much in order for it to not be vandalized, because it's a shame, but it's there, and we have the issue and the problem, and protecting the structure is our duty to make sure that we can help, however, preserve that in a nature moving forward in a very smart and wise way. And so, for me, I didn't have any particular issues with the layout. I do understand not going across the steps, but that also lends itself to having access to fires at the door and things like that we've seen. And I don't know how many issues have been on the doorstep right there, if that was a one-time only ordeal. But the remaining parts, I in particular had no extra comments on. I liked how there was some separation from the fencing and the landscape and the edge of sidewalk. So we got some landscape in front of the fencing, which is also a deterrent in a way. It could be planted with roses for all thorns, but in a sense.
Does the existing fencing, does it meet the current development code?
Around the parking lot?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, the development code, fencing regulations in downtown are a little different than the rest of the city because of the pedestrian-oriented, nature of downtown and trying to create a nice streetscape as you secure property. And so the main idea is something like a parking lot, yeah, that's fine. You could fence that in with a full height fence, within some, design constraints. But when there's a building on the site, the idea is if it's gonna be full height, it needs to fall just behind the facade of the building, and you fence in the gaps with the full height fence so that the building and the fence together secure the perimeter. if you wanna do a fence out toward the sidewalk, then the idea is you keep it at the 4-foot height, kinda like the brownstones in New York, right? Where they've got the low wrought iron fences out front. So full height aligned with the building, lower height out in front to define the public realm, and have that separation, but not kinda create the jail feel for the entire downtown. That's what the downtown development code is going for. However, through a variance or historic exception, other things can be considered for properties depending on whether it's warranted.
So if they, accept the director's, comments about adding the piers, that would be in the plane of the fence that's currently existing in the parking lot, that would just continue?
The conversation with the director, I don't think we got into that level of detail. What they're proposing is right at the back of the walk. So, if, as, Commissioner Hatwick said, yeah, the entirety of it would be at the back of the walk. And so, that's their ambition. And so,
That with the, does that take into account the pier? The pier would be there as well?
so they're not proposing the piers, they're just proposing the steel columns. So, if this group and or the development director want to kinda add conditions to an approval and, to get a more, appealing design, then yeah, I think the columns are in play. Set it back maybe 18 inches to have a little planting area in front to soften that edge. Those are all things that you all could offer comments on.
I think my initial thought was that wrought iron fence is just relentless, and it really detracts from the facade. I think the director is correct in adding that pier. I do think it's important that it's in the plane of what's there already and not be a, sort of, divergent addition, so I support the piers. I think they gotta fence it, support that, and I think it should be in the plane of the fence that's already there.
Yeah, I believe the parking lot fence is set back just a little bit from the sidewalk to allow some softening landscape.
There was on our street, there was the rendering on that slide. See how the fence is set back in the photos on the, except for the very front, entry, but, now granted, if those are, brick,
Yeah, and at the site, they expressed they wanted to be right at the sidewalk, so yeah, that's an interesting point, though, that they rendered it with a little bit of a setback. So that's something that would need to be clarified.
And then that's one thing I saw on the plan view, is it appeared to also, on our street, have a separation of 2, 3, 4 feet, something like that, on the plan where the line was drawn, which I support the setback, but I also support more of a column, continuance of the existing, the existing ones that they have.
I think I would also concur that we need relief from the marching of those posts across, but I don't feel hard and fast that it'd be exactly the same brick shape with the orb. If someone came up with, a post that had some, historic reference to the building and blended with that, I think I'd be open to another idea, just because you don't, for instance, that post that we see, where is it? I don't know if it's in this picture. The one that we see with the orb at the other side of the building, yes, quite a ways from the front facade.
Probably 3 feet. 3 feet from the sidewalk.
They're planning on putting the fence on the outside of the fence that's there already?
So the site plan that they provided shows it right at the back of the walk, if you look at where the red dashed line is.
So they're gonna have 2 fences?
There is only,
Yeah, there's
only
just
that
one
little
panel.
part, there's only that little
Yeah.
piece.
So they've got the columns going all the way down to Tulare Street, but there's only one section that actually has the fencing in there. The rest is just the open columns.
And I don't know if it existed
Yeah.
at one time.
I'm not,
Dan, do you know?
I'm not sure. I've always thought it was curious how it is now, where there's some with fencing and some without, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that came to pass.
I understand the necessity of the gates at the front entrance. and I believe there's historic record of front doors of Catholic churches being defaced. I think the earliest recording is around 1200. And so we have a long history of defacing front doors of churches, and with this one being very prominent, I think that will just continue without a significant fence or gate. And like Jason, I hate that we have to do that, but I think that's the only way to really protect this, and I appreciated that they included the hours that the gates would be open, and since they're large and they can push back, and it doesn't give the prison feel, but I think the only way to really protect the front of this church is going to be to have a very secure fence and gate, just like they've had to do at Kearney Mansion and other properties around town. And so what they proposed in terms of front, it's sad we would have to do that, but I fully understand it. And I looked at the back fencing last week, wondering, will they be replacing what's there in order to get the pointy iron, or would they continue with this, or because I think without some security factor, right, the slant and the point and all of those things, whatever they're called, they're going to continue to have the same problems because it's very accessible. In fact, the columns make it easier to climb because you've got something to climb up on.
Now, this being just a conceptual item that the commission is kind of tanking at the moment, is an item that we also allow the public to comment on?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Do we have any other comments that, before I open it to the public? No? Okay. At this point, I'd like to open it to the public, see if they have any comments. Come on up, state your name and address for the record, please.
You're getting old. I'm David Davenport, 6156 North Miter here in Fresno. I'm wondering if you might consider speaking to the adjacent property owners across Mariposa to determine if maybe you could close Mariposa so that the fence wouldn't obscure at all the front of the cathedral and the rectory, but would instead be parallel to and continue all the way across our street. Then a big gate could be at our street so that could be opened when there were important services. And when it was closed, there would be no obscuring of the front of the building with respect to photography and wedding receptions and other sorts of things that might spill out of the church. Likewise, I'm wondering if maybe the back fence doesn't need to go all the way to Tulare and could go along that walkway so that the parking space could continue to perhaps serve as spillover parking, as I'm sure it does for CRMC right now during the day, Monday through Friday, and not have to be closed to the public, so to speak, by the existence of a gate. Just two suggestions. Thank you.
Comment.
I'd like to take a turn if I may. My name is Thomas Force. I am the facility manager with the Diocese of Fresno. I am also the property manager of St. John's Cathedral. So if you don't mind, I'll walk up here and give you a couple of little history on what's been going on.
Sure.
Okay, so obviously you know by the handout, the building's over 100 years old. Right now, we're in the stages of repainting the outside and doing a bunch of preservation with stained glass. The proposal that we got back from the director, from our perspective, doesn't protect us at all. Our most vulnerable point has always been the face of the church. It's not the sides, And though we've had doors kicked in, numerous windows broken into from different areas back through here that we give public access to. $60,000 in damage to marble statues that can never be replaced ever. They don't make it, there's not an artisan that can recreate it. So really, the damage to those is unrecoverable. We can't, there's just no way. So to put a dollar amount on, you know, can we buy something that's, fiberglass and put it in its place that represents what was once there? Sure. But is it the real deal? Not even close. So forget the financial loss that we've suffered in the last 10 years. Most people don't know what a rectory is, so let me tell you what it is. That's where the priest that's assigned to that church actually resides. That's his full-time home. Every morning, since going back since I've been with the diocese, we're continually cleaning up urine, feces, putting out fires on the doorsteps to where the priest comes out, right here. We've suffered numerous amounts of damage to the face of the cathedral over and over and over again. This has been on TV, it's been in newspaper, so I think everybody here is more than aware of what's the damage that's been sustained over the number of countless years. In order to gain the security, and we've taken more passive steps, security screens, that was first. Then we took another passive step. Okay, let's put up cameras. And we keep taking these steps. The bottom line is nothing is working. These people are extreme, to the extreme. We've had the police out there numerous times to remove people who have threatened our priests at knife point and other things, so there's massive issues. We've got restraining orders, I can't even count them how many we have. This isn't just a matter of preserving the historical significance of the building, it's about protecting the resident and our parishioners. The same issues that the priests experience, visiting priests, not just the resident, but from all over the world, come to this cathedral, have been threatened or confronted. The security is not supposed to be convenient. It never is. But precedence has been set. The Muse home, the fence was never needed until it was defaced. And once that was brought to somebody's attention, it went up. Somebody just brought up Kearney Mansion, the properties. We've taken our share of the blows and remained pretty passive about it, trying to forgive and forget. It's not a matter of forgiving anybody, it's about self-preservation. If we don't do something to protect this cathedral, at some point, we had gasoline thrown on the front doors. Forget the financial cost. If it wouldn't have been caught by a homeless man who called from across the street and said, hey, your building's on fire, theoretically, outside the brick, the main part of the building would have been damaged to a point where financially there's no replacement. We cannot recreate what's there. Okay? So the proposed fencing that we've got some ideas about is when they're talking about fencing, there was a fence that ran here at one time. It got damaged in enough places that people backed through it or pulled through it from the internet, whatever, and sections were cut out because the cathedral did not have the funds to fix it. It was cheaper to cut it out. It was an eyesore to have it bent in 6 ways to Sunday, so they cut it out and got rid of it. Now that's long before I got there, going back probably a decade or more. So the existing fence right now, there are sections of it that travel right here. It meets code. It has the columns. It has the orbs on top. We're barely going to tie into the existing. Now, what the drawings don't show is that fence is not going to be prison black or security black. That fence is actually going to be a cocoa color to reflect the color of the handrails that already exist in the cathedral. The gates that we're talking about are going to be a 50-50 split, and will open up all the way back to this point, and all the way back to this point. The entire steps, the principal steps, and the handrails will be fully accessible.
With the sliding gates?
Right. They're cantilever gates, so there's no posts. They're all supported from the end.
So if the gates are closed and there's people, in the event there were people inside, how they get out in an emergency?
We have, the business hours are on timers, so everything opens up on a timer.
From a code standpoint, how do people get out? They have to get out.
No, when they're in, the gates
No, what
are
I'm
open.
saying is you can't control, there could be people in that building and those front gates could be locked. You may not intend them to be.
Exits here, exit here.
So how do they get out if they're within the gates? If they're within the fencing, how do they get out?
Into the, well, the emergency.
How do they get to the street, to the public way?
They're gonna come through these gates.
But if it's a sliding gate, is a person gonna move that?
No, these are, okay, there's, I don't know, maybe it didn't show up in the paperwork. All the gates, except for these two are,
Oh, sorry.
right here and here, these are manual gates. Everything else will be powered non-timers. And those are set to open during business hours. They open up and they stay that way.
You're thinking of more of,
I'm saying
the
that
person who's cleaning the building
The
or
the timer has nothing to do with the building code. If there's somebody in that building that's not supposed to be in that building and there's an emergency and they have to get out and the gates are locked because of the timer, how does somebody get out?
Well, you're talking about from the front of the building to where the gates are gonna be.
Wherever, they get out.
There's 40 feet there.
Yeah, they have to get to the public way, they have to get to the street. I'm just saying, there are gates that will allow somebody to get out, is that right? Manually, without a timer?
Yeah, there's this gate, this access way right here, goes to a gate right here in front of the rectory.
Very good, thank you.
And it'll have a emergency push bar.
Yeah, everything has a panic bar, everything's got a drop lock, everything's powered, except for those two manual gates. Now, we already, actually, what the gentleman earlier was talking about, we actually own the adjacent property on the other side of the street. We own the hall, and so taking our fence, that was another proposal to go, was to bring that fence across the street, get the city to go ahead and give us this property, this fence, and actually rebuild that entire thing into a courtyard for different events. The fencing around the parking lot, I don't know if anybody's been downtown during Veterans Day, but our parking lot's a free-for-all. So if we're trying to if we have a mass or a funeral or something like that going, or we're just bombarded by cars. It's an overflow for parking for a lot of people, that's why we wanna close it up. Not only that, we have our own events we'd like to do there, be able to close the fence off. Protect the building and ourselves and our residents, and not only that, our parishioners. So, any other questions? Anybody? I mean, feel free at any time to, the cathedral is wide open. You wanna walk down there, drive by it, take a look at it. You can see that we're doing some restoration work right now. There's a bunch of scaffolding on the outsides. We're making an investment in this property. But even I, at some point, will tell, the board and advice bishop or whoever I'm speaking with, at what point do we say that's enough? So, anywho, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments from, public? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to, commission. For me personally, I think my comments are, obviously, do what we can to help, give the ability to protect the, property. I do like the closure of the street idea. I know that's
How feasible
a little bit longer.
Not at all feasible.
Yeah, not at all.
Well,
But,
it is only in the fact that alley on the other side needs access, so a little rerouting. We also own the vacant lot next to that. There's a way we actually did a road plan or a traffic plan, a travel plan to actually use that alley to get the business out there, and they'll work with us. If we decide that we could ever go that route, would be to block off Mariposa from R to S.
that's
Part of that property, right.
a long time, process for something like that to happen.
With
I don't
all due
think we can
respect,
do- Yeah.
not gonna
Not
happen.
gonna happen, yeah, right.
So folks on the site.
Yeah, fine,
If you've ever been in that neighborhood on a feast day, though, the streets are blocked. on feast days. They're full of people, and you can't drive through on, Mariposa, on the feast days, and immediately after the big mass, the later Sunday mass, the street is full, and so, in many ways, the street is already blocked, during service times. So, that's why I was intrigued by the block the street, because there's so many people in the street anyway, and vendors come and set up along Mariposa Street with food and objects for whatever feast day, there is. I mean, you can get a good taco on Sunday, at the corner of Mariposa and R.
Well, it was a wild idea only because when we were looking at that fence of not crossing the front of the cathedral, it's just going down the sides, because we actually own all the property on the opposite side of Mariposa, everything on both sides. So really, the only issue there is gonna be a travel plan for businesses that exit out of that alley, and that would be, turn it around and make it a one-way. That's a possibility, but, it was a way to kill two birds with one stone. If we're gonna go ahead and build this big fence, why not just get both the properties, all the property, and wrap it into one, so.
The Christian Education Building across the street doesn't experience the same kind of vandalism.
I'm sorry, the what?
The education building across the street, across, Mariposa, doesn't experience the same.
Oh, the hall?
The hall, yeah.
You know what, it's mixed. It's mixed because most people don't associate that with the church. We had somebody actually come and actually wanna convert that building into condos, because it's a beautiful building, we'd like to buy it into condos. Like, well, we had to explain to them, it's part of the cathedral.
And that building also came before this commission, just not very long ago, to add the handicapped accessibility, to the side, of the building, and, we took the building through the process of, the remodeling for handicapped ADA accessibility on the site.
For me, my only, comment really is on our street, as it gets towards the corner, keeping a little bit of landscape, and having the fencing set back a little bit, I think it's gonna help with the fence and the view. As it gets towards kind of the, main corner, obviously you don't have a whole lot of, space to work with there, but,
Well, we can drop as far as cutting that corner, we can cut short of it. We've looked at a couple different designs. Instead of, coming into just a right angle here, we could actually, bulldoze it, however, soften it, round the fence out, and then take it back off again. That's what we're looking for, is for the recommendations. Give us an idea of something that's plausible that we think that will satisfy everybody.
I like your idea of turning the statue the other direction and making a little prayer courtyard there, because then that will open that up to not have it be right on that corner.
But we're gonna completely re-landscape that area and put benches and some other stuff so that people can actually just come in and sit down and relax. Right now, there's not a lot of places to sit, outside the interior of the cathedral. I think it's a little more inviting.
That's good.
For me, the issue is the fence itself. I think the wrought iron fence alone, that's fine for an industrial park, but I don't think that really connotes the importance of this building. That's why I think I understand there's costs associated with the brick piers, but I really think that's needed to make this fence look as though it belongs to this valuable property and not just a utilitarian security measure, which is what it is. So perhaps there's a way to introduce the brick pier in a way that is palatable to the church. Maybe we don't have to run it all the way down. Maybe it's just concentrated here at the front, but to not do that and just have a metal wrought iron fence, I really think is gonna devalue the quality of this building.
I agree, Paul. I think something more in tune with the church could be done at the front, and then maybe it turns up our street a bit and has a stopping place, and then maybe it does look more like what encloses the parking lot.
yeah.
Wherever that secondary entrance is off the side entrance there, maybe, I don't know.
keep going.
I'm sorry, I look at that every day, so it may be in the conceptual. It's that, whoa, geez, sorry, I didn't see that. It was, looking both ways. And then there's a side view of our street where it shows there you go, right here. Okay, so this is one of the entrances, right over here with the steps. There's another entrance right down from that. I'm sorry, we're actually there. That actually leads into the basement. And that door that was 100 and, well, we're guessing 150 years old, kicked right off the hinges. To the point where it can't be rebuilt. Now we've actually put a metal door down there, but, so it's, you know, the blunt of the attacks seem to come at the face of the rectory or the face of the cathedral. Our street is facing right, you know, into traffic, and the back of the cathedral. We have fencing that we've put up. We've had people try to scale it. Again, if somebody really wants in there, it's gonna happen. But, you know, we're really trying to deter that, by putting up some fencing. So, any recommendations, that any of you have, please, feel free to throw out even the wildest idea. Anything I can think of that would, I like the idea with the columns. That is some additional cost. Obviously, I can't do something like that, without approval. Because it's going to push the cost up. And the whole point of when we started it, let's say 150 and scaled our way down, was we had to start deciding what's more important. And that's how we got to, you know, a black gate or and something with a little more aggressive as far as the style. The column idea, that's a possibility. If we're gonna do that, we're probably gonna wanna do electrical and go ahead and put some lighting, some glow. The globes are on top, we might as well make those lights, LEDs, and get some soft lighting in there just for walking paths. So that's definitely an idea. Anybody have anything else? Anything you've seen, any ideas anywhere, any other cities?
I think what we can do is we can kind of summarize and close
And I would
our
just like
recommendations.
to ask of Laura and Dan, what is the process? If they come up with a concrete design, will that come back before the commission? Or will it be handled in-house?
It'll come back to you. Yep.
Would it be useful to have like a subgroup of this work with the diocese? You know, periodically, I don't know, to develop this.
Yeah, I mean, we don't typically do that for a project of this size,
Yeah.
but if that's what you all want to do, that's possible. I think there's been some direction here, already, and staff is, you know, ready and willing to continue to work with them too. So if you wanted to take it further than just your pre-application comments here tonight, that would be up to you.
There's just an idea.
I'd just like to ask the director if, what is your time frame? As soon as possible, is that what we're all thinking, or?
If I could've done it yesterday, I would've. We've been given the green light to break ground as soon as possible. The only thing that prevents us from, obviously, we have to get the variance, but, once that's all done, the only thing preventing us from starting that day is we have to work around unfortunately, people don't die on a certain schedule or get married. We can kind of plan around the weddings, we can't plan around the deaths, and so, you know, we get 4 posts in, and then we can't get 4 more until next Tuesday. So we're ready to light it up, and the first part of the fencing, just so you know, was broken up into 4 phases. The face will get done first so that we can get back to business. And the gates will be open all the entire time, so that funerals and weddings can take place. But we'll start on the face, and then there's no time, as far as it takes us, as long as it takes us to come down our street and then encompass the back parking lot. Once we get to that corner where the statue was at and we make that turn, that's where we're, you know, temporarily will, until we get to this column here, or whatever columns we're gonna put in, we won't have a working fence or any kind of working security until we get to that point.
What I'm hearing kind of from the commission is, down our street, not on necessarily, it's all primary facade, but not primary entry facade. Having a setback with landscape will help kind of visually, make the fence, have more appeal. And then as we work towards the corner, the main entry, having incorporation of, the brick columns would probably tie it in, a little bit. And, am I right in that kind of summary of, on the front of the facade, where the entry is, primary entry, some brickwork would be, a focus point, and then on the sides, we can have the offset with the landscape.
And along with that, I would like to see something as secure as decorative can be made at the front of the church, and then it can be less decorative, as you say, when we, the
Start
columns
moving down our
change.
street.
Less
Now, the fence
decorative
is actually
like
gonna
that.
sit back, it's gonna tie into this existing column. There's an ear sitting right here on this side of the column, actually, where you attach a new rail to continue it on. So it's actually gonna run right through here, up and over, and continue. So all this in here, theoretically, we could do some planting in there to soften up at least our street. Grow some vine,
Well, I think we're okay with even just that bit of grass as a buffer.
Yeah, just some sort of a landscape buffer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when we get up there, we butt right up against the sidewalk. There's not, when we get to the face, there's just almost no wiggle room to be able to get around. The handicap ramp and everything else is out there.
Right, on the other side, yes.
Any other comments? Is that enough direction for staff?
So, Laura, what do you think?
Thank you.
Thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak to you. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, Laura has all my contact information. If there's any other photos you'd like or proposals on different fencing, let me know. I'll provide whatever information you all think will help us move this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will, close item B, and we will move on to item C at this point. And staff has a presentation for us about the, train box car that we've been enamored with for a little bit here.
Yeah.
This is the one that, last year, there was talks about this going on the road.
Oh.
Right.
Like an exhibition of some sort?
So the California Mercy Train, box car, I think, everyone here is probably well acquainted with it. I've had to become acquainted with it, recently. As you may know, it was designated in 2016. And, at that time, the property owner representative was trying to get help from the city in, constructing a cover for it to protect it. And I believe it was, Commissioner Halajian and Goldbeck that were, trying to assist in that process. I think we were doing, or the city, was doing what it could to provide any relief from development code, that would be needed in order to get a cover installed. So at this point, the lowest, fee proposal, that the property owner can find is still not affordable for them. And so they, have had to look elsewhere for other options, about what is gonna be the best way to preserve, this resource. So, the caretaker, known as, the Grand de California, had a meeting this past weekend, and, they have decided, that they are going to take up an offer from the Palm Springs Air Museum, to relocate it, to their museum free of charge, and, to store it, for display there. There seems to be some miscommunication among representatives of the Grand of California. The correspondent, Joe Donovan, believes that the property was not legitimately listed as a heritage property. Although I went back and looked at the staff report and minutes for the property, and I saw that, Mildred Wright Pearson and, Mr. Schwartz were present, and, supported, the designation, and they did so, in good faith, and hoped that this, designation would help, the property, bring more attention to it. You know, they were looking for any assistance they could in preservation of this, resource. So that's where we're at now. I guess I don't know if, Mildred is here on behalf of the Grand of California, so she might have, more to add to that. I know this has been her baby for a long time, so I know she, on behalf of the Grand, would not like to see it go. But she might be able to add more, to the discussion, and then, I'm just hoping everyone involved can come up with, the best process for preserving, this resource.
That kind of is a interesting, conundrum, I mean, because it's a unit that is preserved and not the ground that it's on, or the foundation. It's not secured on the foundation, as a matter of fact, yeah. So, other boxcars, we've been talking about some of those similar things on how to keep those intact as well, and secure. Wow. So, would you like to come up and tell us more? What are the next plans that you have? How can we help? Name and address, of course, for the record.
Done this before. My name is Mildred S. Wright Pearson. My address is 25317 West Skaggs Avenue in Tranquility, California. This is breaking my heart, but I have no recourse, and the Grand wants to move it to Palm Springs. We have attempted to get the cover put on several different occasions. I've contacted all kinds of construction companies. We even had an article, I know you've seen an article that was put in the paper, but that's a little bit late. They're saying that too little, too late. The boxcar will be going to Palm Springs, and I believe they're going to come and get it in November, sometime in November. I don't know what the date is or the specifics on when they're going to come and get it. But it's not, well, it's free for them because they have the money to move it down there. But I say my heart is breaking because where it sits, anybody can come and see it at any time. When they put it in this museum in Palm Springs, you're going to have to pay to get in to see it, and it's only going to be certain hours. But as Laura said, we have to do what's best for the boxcar. And there was a vote taken yesterday at our Grand Fall Shimano, which is a meeting, and it was determined that we would be moving it. Do you have any questions of me? This boxcar is one of a kind. It's the only one that was given to us from France. Okay, each state got one, and whether they maintain theirs or not, we have tried to maintain our boxcar. And it's like it's been there since 2004, and we've been desperately trying to get it covered. And you see, we have the painter, the guy that painted it, is here today. We refurbished it, repainted it. He hand painted all of those plaques, and now it's going to go. That's my dog. If you have any questions of me about the boxcar.
This was given to the state of California or to the city of Fresno?
It is a boxcar that was given to the state of California, but it was determined that Fresno would be the place where it would be maintained. And it was in Roding Park first.
That was when? When did that occur? After the Second World War.
1952.
I feel like I need to make a little legal comment because we uncovered some stuff with today, and I'm not trying to make some super dramatic thing, but it's going to come off that way. So the boxcar sat. So today we were kind of presenting this. The thought was it was going to be as though the heritage designation was kind of the issue, because in 2016 the thought was by making it a heritage property, maybe that would uncover some funds. And heritage properties, of course, have to have the support of the property owner. And then I guess maybe from a legal standpoint, the issue would be de-designating it. And theoretically, it follows the same process. But my personal view is that heritage properties, if the owner wants to undo it, I think the commission, generally speaking, should adhere to their wishes, because that's kind of, in fact, I'd like to kind of redo the way that we have it worded, because I think it's odd that you can kind of, that the commission could say no to someone who did it. But anyway, the boxcar originally was in Long Beach, and then Fresno took it in 1952. It sat at Roding Park till 2004, and we uncovered the agreement with the Grand Duke, California, and my understanding is they'd been taking the position that they quote unquote own it and can do whatever they want. And I have looked at the documents, and now I'm really starting to question whether they have the legal right to move it at all. And the reason is because we have an agreement from 2004 with the city that states that they gave us $10, and then they agreed to maintain it and to keep it on public display in that location. And it states that there's a reversionary right. Should they fail to continue to do that, Section 4 of the agreement says, and this would be considered a default, moving it from its location, that the city may at its option terminate this agreement, so we could just let them take it, or give written notice to the Grand that we're going to exercise our reversionary right, in which case we would take it back by the city. Now, I actually don't know if that's your call, HPC's call. It might be, but that's something I'm going to have to look into a little bit more. But I would say at the very least, we're probably going to be sending out a letter to them saying, hey, don't move it right now, or you may be in violation of the reversionary right. Now, I'm not saying that the city is going to exercise that. That's a political decision. But I do want to make very, very clear to Grand Duke, California, that they do not own it in the sense that they can just move it, is my understanding. And it's not only in the agreement. They sent a confirming letter on July 20th, 2004, stating that they acknowledge a failure of the condition, including keeping it on public display there, would be a cause for reversion and transfer back to the city. So they're a little bit confused, and maybe they hadn't noticed that, but we're going to have to make some decisions politically, not me, I'm just a lawyer, but the city, and maybe the city is going to kick it over to HPC because it's considered view of historic resource, but they might also just say, oh, it's a contractual matter, and then I guess it would be the city manager who gets to decide what they want to do. But I think we had put some of that in writing to Grand Duke, California. Laura, had we mentioned these contracts? Yes. Okay. So
that's why I said I didn't wanna have a super dramatic thing, but I just hope that they're on notice that don't just move this in November without at least getting some sort of opinion or something from us. Now, the city may decide, hey, that's nice to have it in the Air Museum, it's gonna be protected, whatnot, but it seems to me that if the city so chooses, either maybe through the staff or potentially kick it to you guys, that, we do have the right to prevent this move.
Haven't we already, oh, I'm sorry. I think, hasn't this body already stated their position by designating it as a, historic property?
I don't know how to square that, legally speaking. I don't know what that really, I don't really understand the heritage designation myself. I can't wrap my head around what it legally means, to be honest. I think that, I know what this contract means, but it's not totally clear to me what, from a legal standpoint, whether that I think the heritage designation may be kind of a red herring.
Are you saying the heritage designation as it applies to this particular artifact or in any
Oh,
case?
no, as it applies to this artifact.
Okay, all right.
Just because we already had a contractual, reversion if something were to occur or if they weren't to maintain it. So I think what the theory was on the designation was that by having some sort of designation, it would open it up to funding streams and that sort of thing. But I don't think it was ever intended to be a hammer or some sort of thing that we would use against them. But this was, the 2004 agreement absolutely was meant to be, I guess what I would say is I think the heritage designation was purely a carrot. This is a stick. So I'm not sure what we're gonna do, but, and it's not my decision, but I've alerted the city attorney, and they're gonna talk to the city manager, and I think that what's gonna happen is it's gonna be the city manager's call. The city manager might kick it to the commission. I'm trying to think who else it would be. I feel like it's either gonna be the city manager or get kicked to the commission.
Well, the contract is with the city, right?
Yes.
Well,
But they might say it's dealing with a historic resource. It's not a quote-unquote historic resource. Right. But it may very well be that they would seek the commission's recommendation, and then you could use whatever you felt. I mean, it wouldn't be that you have to say, oh, well, since we can keep it, we're going to. In fact, it's spelled out. We can make that choice. Do we want to just let it go? Maybe we're happy with it going there. Maybe that's a good thing. I think we have that authority. Or we say, if you move it and don't maintain it, then the city would take it. Now, I don't know if there's a funding stream or if the city has a place there to put it. Maybe they will now that we've uncovered this. Maybe this will make some people more interested in it. I don't know. Right. But go ahead, Paul.
Just so I understand, the Grand of California, their position is let's move it.
Yes.
You personally want it to stay, but the organization wants to move it. Is that correct?
There's several of us that really want it to stay, but I can't go against the Grand. I'm part of the Grand. I can't go against it. But one of the reasons why we, and I was here, like I said, I was here before, and Wayne and I spoke before you at that time because we were trying to get it designated as a historical monument, war monument, and with the heritage. And that would also help, by Laura's predecessor, she said that it would help us in getting some of the leeway with getting permits and things like that on getting it covered. So that was one of the reasons why we chose to come this way.
Sounds to me that until we get clarification from the city, we really can't do much.
Yeah. And like I said, we already have made it by designating it. That is our role, is to give our opinions, and that designation that's part and parcel.
Right.
And even if this agreement wasn't in place, a heritage property like a resource, if a substantial alteration is being proposed, such as relocation, that would have to come before the HPC in any case.
It would, although it says that the manner for de-designation is the same as for designation, and it includes that the property owner comes forth, and I just think if it were, the heritage is the only issue, then either HPC or the council would probably say, hey, we'll de-designate it. I mean, if the property owner...
If the property owner wanted to maintain that designation, it would have, that
Right,
proposal would
but what
have-
I'm saying is that basically, we have a contract that says it's not theirs if they move it.
Right,
So, or at least we have the option of exercising our reversion right if it's moved. So I think we need to see what, I mean, it's probably gonna be Wilma's decision.
So it sounds like, there's gonna be a tabled item for a while, and we'll get some briefings every now and then on.
Yeah, we wanted to at least bring this to your attention and have an open discussion about it, since, you know, your meeting just happened yesterday, so, we were just gonna present to you today what we know, as of yesterday.
Well, it seems like this is in the city manager's hands. To decide, we can't make a call for reversion. We're not party to that contract.
Yeah, I think it would probably be primarily a contractual thing and then they might decide to, I'm a little hesitant of making too much of a recommendation at this point, other than to say that I think it's pretty clear that they don't have the right to unilaterally move it.
Got a comment in the back, you wanna come up and name and address again for the record?
You can...
I'll use the chair on this side this time.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Thanks, Mel.
Unfortunately, this appears adversarial, and we're not at all angry with each other. We're just heartbroken. I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I taught history at Fresno City College for 14 years, and that was most of the 90s, or all of the 1990s and up till 2003. And I regularly took my classes, actually would tell them, don't come to school today, meet me at Post 509, because today's lesson is about the First World War. Because what hasn't been pointed out yet is that this was a 40 and 8 boxcar. These were the classic boxcars used by the French Ministry of Transportation to move American soldiers from the landing point, for the disembarkation point for the United States Army at Brest, to the front. And that it was called a 40 and 8 because 40 soldiers with their equipment stood up in that thing, or 8 fully loaded horses were squeezed into this thing, and then they were coupled together and they were taken to the front. And 1.5 million American soldiers traveled in exactly that way, and I would take my class there to talk to them about the First World War, and we would begin by measuring the boxcar and laying that out with orange cones on the adjacent asphalt, and then I would have my students stand, 40 of them, shoulder to shoulder, with their backpacks, which simulated the idea of having a 50-pound military kit, and then I said, stay that way for 5 minutes while I take care of the roll call. I'm going to call out your name and you can say who's here and who isn't, that kind of thing. And they would become so antsy and claustrophobic by just staying for 5 minutes in that 40 and 8 that they couldn't begin to understand what it would have been like to travel in that boxcar for 7.5 hours. So it's an educational resource. And when I left Fresno City College, I hoped that others would follow on in my tradition, and maybe they have. And more importantly, many of my students went on to become teachers, and I hope that they would do something similar. They may not have gone down to Post 509 to physically do that, because that would have involved getting a bus from the transportation department at Clovis Unified to make the trip, et cetera, et cetera. But they had the dimensions of the boxcar, and they could tell their students, Now, you could go see one of these boxcars down on North First. You need to go do that so that you get a greater appreciation of what World War I was about, the problems of logistics involved in getting men to the front. So it's an important educational resource, and for that reason, I don't think we want it to go anywhere, except someplace else in Fresno. And I would propose to this group that in staff recommendations, you're thinking of recommending to the city where something like this might go to get the protection that it needs, that it's just in the last couple of years that the Fresno Fair has dedicated space at the Fresno Fair as a local historical museum. And there's plenty of room for this inside that building, alongside the old Fresno Courthouse cupola, and lots of other interesting things. So that's where I think it could go, and probably stay there permanently. But I've also been working another angle. I'm going to pat myself on the back here for a moment. Because tomorrow I'm getting an award from the Board of Supervisors for leading efforts to restore Liberty Cemetery. The first iteration of this was I did the research to get 15 headstones for Civil War guys who didn't have headstones at Liberty Cemetery, and I got a marker that was originally put in 1917 put back in place, complete with the evidence of the vandalism from 1969 that resulted in the removal by those vandals of a 3-inch ordnance rifle from the Civil War that used to sit in the cemetery. And the marker got removed, but I spruced it up, I painted it, and I had a centennial celebration of the commemoration of the founding of Liberty Cemetery on the real Memorial Day, on Wednesday, May 30th of this year. And that's just a first step toward doing some other things at Liberty Cemetery. And I'm interested in cemeteries, enough so that I promised Charlie Waters, who probably all of you know of, maybe even have met, that in the aftermath of his successful getting of the California Veterans Home out there at California and Marks, that I would carry the torch on his behalf to get a Central California Veterans Cemetery operated by the state of California, because there's one way up at Shasta, and there's one somewhere in the far south. We don't have a Central California one. And I've been in discussions with the people at the state, the State Department of Veterans Affairs, about trying to get a cemetery at Fresno across the road from the Veterans Home. And if perchance the county museum at the Fresno Fair wouldn't want to keep this forever, this could then become an item of interest in the visitor center for a new veterans cemetery in Fresno. And in any of these cases, whether it's at the Fresno Fair or it's at a veteran cemetery, my projection is I think I can get this done by 2035. Okay? It takes a long time to get these things going in the state. And I think I'll be around by then, so I'll live to see it. But it'll still be a resource for educators. If it goes down to Palm Springs, it's lost to us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other public comments on the matter? Come on up, your name and address.
My name is Al Nitre from Another Coat of Paint and Wall Covering. I'm the painter.
Painter?
And I would like it to stay in Fresno so people can see my work. I've been painting, as I tell people, I'm kind of new at this. I've only been doing 39 years. But you ever been to Sequoia Brewery? I painted that inside. Where you see the wood, it's not wood, it's metal or other wood. But I made the faux on there. All the hand textures and the glaze, all that I did. I didn't do the pictures, but everything else. And I paint the Tower Theater for 7 years, inside and out. The meat market and Bobby Solidars, the doors and stuff. I do houses inside and out and furniture. But I use the best Dunn Edwards Paint. Although you go there, I always get the best. That paint job should last at least a decade. But if it's inside, it'll last longer, because the heat and the cold will make that wood go back and forth. We have maintenance. So, that's all I have to say. It's, you see my sign on the bottom there. But if you go there, I used the best of the plaques. It took me 2 weeks just to paint the box art itself. It took me longer because I had other jobs and I had to do in the evening and stuff. But those plaques, they gave them to me, they were in bad shape. And you can't just sand them smooth because you have this design. So it took me about 3 months to do those plaques. And again, Dunn Edwards exterior gloss paint, and at least 2 to 3 coats of that deft gloss varnish, which is for outside and bars. Or if you go to Sequoia Brewery, all those tables use that same varnish, and it stands. So that's all I have to say, is I'd like to see it stay. And it would be nice in the fair. I went to the fair and saw that new, it would be nice in there. And you bring classes with kids in there and give the whole thing. And the American Legion has stuff from the war that's in there already. And by the way, I ended World War II. That's August 15th, 1945 at 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I don't remember because I was in the womb. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, they announced World War II was over. All that celebration and all the noise brought me out. Now, I do think I came out looking for a beer, but the doctor said, "You're too young," and slapped my butt. All right.
Thank you. Wonderful job.
It looks beautiful.
It works.
By the way, I am a master painter. I can take anything you have and paint it any way you want. Wood graining, marble, glazes, anything, almost. Okay, but
I think there were 10 properties that would be looking for.
Yeah.
The price is right, yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, so now we'll bring it back to us. Do we have any other
I just have a
questions
question,
for staff?
as we kind of listen and learn more of this. How did it come about that the Palm Springs group wanted this? Do you know that?
I believe the Grand of California was reaching out, to people, or maybe you.
You're
know-
right.
you know
Mildred Wright Pearson, 25317 West Skaggs in Tranquility. Yes, they were reaching out to, they would try to go to the, there was a train depot or something like that. They didn't want it. And Palm Springs heard about it and they said that they wanted it. And they've already been up there to look at it, to see what would be needed to take it and get a, what do you call those things? Some kind of machine to pick it up and take it away. yes, one of those things. And this was last month that they came up, and they said that they would be taking it by the end of the year is what they told me, but I learned later on this weekend that they're supposed to come sometime in November. But they're waiting to see what is going to happen right now with the boxcar because of the controversy about can it be taken, or does it have to stay here, and who owns it, and that kind of thing. So, but no, Palm Springs has looked into it, and they're willing to pay everything. Of course, like I said before, they have the money, we don't. to move it down to Palm Springs, but it would be in a museum, and you would have to, only certain hours, like right now, you can go there right now and look at the boxcar. But, there you would have to pay to get in and that kind of thing. You're welcome.
I vote to stay in Fresno.
Well, I think we can, officially close that item. Okay, we will close that item out, and move on to Chairperson's report. There is none. And, we'll move to unscheduled items. Is there any unscheduled items from the commission at all?
I just wanna ask a question about, remember I brought up about the Fresno, the historical app for the Fulton Mall? Did you get a chance to speak with?
I haven't been able to yet,
Okay.
no.
Okay, that's that.
Any other scheduled items from the commission? No? Okay, staff, any unscheduled items?
No.
No, okay. General public, any unscheduled items? None, all right, then we will close that out. Our next meeting is November 26th, and we will be here. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.